Have you looked at your grocery receipt lately and just thought, what happened? Like genuinely, when did eggs become a luxury item? When did filling up your gas tank start feeling like a financial decision? If you've been walking around the last few years feeling like your money just doesn't go as far as it used to, you're not imagining things. You're not being dramatic. The numbers back you up completely. And today, we're going to lay it all out. You're listening to Converts, your guide to currency, crypto, and conversions. I'm here to break down exactly how much more you're paying in 2026 compared to 2020, category by category. We're talking groceries, rent, gas, electricity, healthcare, and even the stuff that somehow got cheaper. Yeah, a few things actually did. We'll get to those. But first, let's start with the big picture number, because this one hits hard. Since January 2020, cumulative inflation in the United States has reached 25.7%. That means if you had $100 in your pocket in 2020, that same $100 today only buys you what about $79.50 would have bought back then. Or flip it around. You now need $125.67 to buy what $100 covered 6 years ago. Let that sink in for a second. A quarter of your purchasing power, just gone. Not because you spent recklessly, not because you made bad decisions. Just inflation doing its thing. And look, people talk about inflation like it's this abstract economic concept. But it's not abstract when you're standing in the checkout line watching your total climb. It's not abstract when your landlord sends you that renewal notice with a higher number on it. This is real money out of real people's pockets, every single day. So let's get into the specifics. And fair warning, some of these numbers are genuinely shocking. Let's start with the grocery store, because that's where most people feel it first. Eggs, up 69% since 2020. 69%. If you were paying $2 for a dozen eggs in 2020, you're now looking at close to $3.50. Bread is up 53%. These aren't fancy artisan items. This is basic, feed your family food. The stuff you can't just stop buying. For the full category-by-category price comparison across all grocery items, you can check out the article on converts.app. But trust me, it's not just eggs and bread. The entire grocery basket has shifted dramatically. Now let's talk about the one that might make your blood boil the most, auto insurance. Up 55%. 55. If you were paying $150 a month in 2020, you're now paying over $230. And here's the kicker. It's not because you got into accidents or got tickets. It's because repair costs went up. Car prices went up. Medical costs went up. Everything feeding into that insurance calculation got more expensive, and they passed every penny of it along to you. All right, let's talk about rent. Because for a lot of people, especially younger folks, this is the single biggest line item in their budget. The average rent in the U.S. right now is just under $2,000 a month. $1,995. Nationally, rents are up about 36% since 2020. But that's the average. If you're in a city like Miami, rents jumped 53%. That's not a gentle increase. That's a completely different financial reality. And think about what that means for someone who was already stretching to afford their apartment in 2020. A 36% increase doesn't just sting. It can force you to move, to take on roommates, to make sacrifices in other parts of your life just to keep a roof over your head. Let's keep going. Gas. We all remember those beautiful days in 2020 when gas was $2.19 a gallon on average. That was wild. Partly because of the pandemic shutting everything down, sure, but still, it was nice while it lasted. Now we're sitting at around $3.03. That's a 33 to 38% increase depending on where you are. If you've got a long commute, you feel every single penny of that. Electricity. Another one that hits you every month whether you like it or not. The average cost per kilowatt hour went from 13.2 cents in 2020 to somewhere between 17 and 18 cents now. That's a 31 to 37% jump. And if you're running AC in the summer or heat in the winter, your bills reflect that increase in a big way. And then there's healthcare. This one is complicated because the costs show up in different ways. If you get insurance through your employer, those costs are up about 9%. That might sound manageable compared to everything else, but remember, A lot of that increase gets eaten by your employer, and the rest shows up as higher premiums, higher deductibles, higher copays. If you're on the ACA marketplace, premiums are up over 21%. For people buying their own insurance, that's a real budget hit. Now, here's the part that really stings. You might be thinking, okay, everything costs more, but wages went up too, right? And yes, they did. Median household income went from about $67,500 in 2020 to around $83,500 in 2026. That's a 23.8% increase. Sounds decent. But remember that inflation number? 25.7%. Your wages went up 23.8. Inflation went up 25.7. That's a net negative. You're earning more dollars, but those dollars buy less. For the average American household, you've actually lost ground. You're working just as hard, maybe harder, bringing home a bigger paycheck, and you can afford less than you could 6 years ago. That's the part that really gets people. It's this invisible erosion. Your boss gives you a raise and you feel good about it, and then everything around you gets just a little more expensive, and somehow you end up in the exact same spot, or worse. Let me give you a really concrete example. Mortgages. Back in 2020, the average 30-year mortgage rate was around 2.7%. Today, it's hovering around 7%. On a $300,000 home loan, that difference means you're paying roughly $600 more per month. $600. Same house, same neighborhood, same everything. Just a completely different monthly payment because of when you happened to buy. That's nearly $7,200 more per year for the same house. If that doesn't illustrate the cost of living shift, I don't know what does. And it's not just the monthly payment. Higher rates mean you're paying dramatically more in interest over the life of the loan. Someone who locked in at 2.7% in 2020 is saving hundreds of thousands of dollars compared to someone buying the exact same house today. It's created this weird divide where people who already own homes are sitting pretty, and people trying to buy are locked out. First-time homebuyers in particular are getting crushed by this. Many of them have just given up and are renting, which, as we already covered, isn't exactly cheap either. It's this vicious cycle. You can't afford to buy because rates are high. You can't save for a down payment because rent is eating your income. And everything else, groceries, gas, insurance, is taking whatever's left. No wonder so many people feel stuck. Now, I promised I'd talk about some good news, and there actually is some. Not everything got more expensive. Technology, in particular, has been one of the few bright spots. TVs are down about 40%. That 60-inch TV that cost you $700 in 2020, you can probably get a better one now for around $400. Smartphones are down 12 to 14%. Computers are down about 7.5%. Even toys are down about 9%, which, if you've got kids, that's a nice little win at birthday time. The reason is mostly manufacturing efficiency and competition. Tech companies are constantly trying to undercut each other, and the production processes keep getting better. Global supply chains for electronics have also stabilized a lot since the chaos of 2021 and 2022, when chip shortages were driving prices up on everything from cars to gaming consoles. So while your groceries and rent are eating your paycheck alive, at least your next laptop will be a bit cheaper. Small consolation, but I'll take it. And honestly, if you're in the market for a new TV or upgrading your phone, now is actually not a bad time. You're getting significantly more for your money in that category than you were 6 years ago. Let's zoom out for a second and look at how the US compares to the rest of the world. Because this isn't just an American problem. The UK saw inflation peak at 11.1% back in 2022. That was brutal. The Eurozone has actually come down to its lowest point at around 1.9%. Different countries, different timelines, but the same underlying story. The post-2020 era has been expensive everywhere. One of the biggest factors behind all of this, and something people don't always connect the dots on, is interest rates. Back in 2020, the Federal Reserve had rates sitting at practically zero, 0.05%. Today they're at 4.25% to 4.5%. That massive shift was the Fed's main tool to fight inflation, but it came with its own costs. Higher mortgage rates, more expensive car loans, higher credit card interest. Fighting inflation with higher rates is a bit like putting out a fire by flooding the building. It works, but there's water damage. And you know what's really interesting? A lot of people I talk to say they didn't even notice the increases at first. It happened gradually. A few cents more on gas here. $1 more on your grocery bill there. Your insurance renewal comes in a little higher, but you just click renew because what else are you going to do? It's death by 1,000 cuts. And then one day you sit down and actually look at the numbers side by side. 2020 versus 2026. And you realize the ground has shifted under your feet. So what do you actually do with all of this information? Look, I'm not here to tell you everything is terrible and there's no hope. That's not the point. The point is awareness. When you understand exactly how prices have shifted, you can make smarter decisions. You can use tools like the ones we have on converts.app to run the numbers. Figure out what your dollar actually buys now compared to what it bought before. You can plan better, budget better, and stop blaming yourself for feeling squeezed. Because you are being squeezed. The data is crystal clear on that. Wages haven't kept up. And until they do, or until inflation cools down further, the pressure is going to stay. For the full detailed breakdown with all the data and comparisons, head over to converts.app and check out the article. We've got everything laid out with sources and numbers you can dig into yourself. That's it for today's episode. For the full article with all the details, head to converts.app. And if you found this helpful, subscribe wherever you're listening. Until next time.